Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 5, Chapter 1, Text 24. Atha cha duhitaram prajapatir vishvakarmana upayeme.
अथा च दुहितरं प्रजापते विश्वकर्मणा उपयेमे
Barhishmatim nama tasya uha bhava atmajan atma sammanashila.
बहिष्मतीं नाम तस्याम ऊहाभाव आत्मजान आत्मसमानशील
Guna karma rupa viroya viryodaran dashabhavayam bahuva kanyam cha.
Guna karma
गुणः
rupa
कर्म रूप वीर्य उदारान् दश भाव्यां बभूव कन्यां च
Yaviyasim urjasvatim nama.
यवीं उजरवतीं नाम
Thereafter, a translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, Maharaj Priyavrat married Bharishmati, the daughter of the Prajapati named Vishwakarma. In her, he begot 10 sons equal to him in beauty, character, magnanimity, and other qualities. He also begot a daughter, the youngest of all, named Urjaswati. Maharaj Priyavrat not only carried out the order of Lord Brahma by accepting the duties of government, but also married Bharishmati, the daughter of Vishwakarma, one of the Prajapatis. Since Maharaj Priyavrat was fully trained in transcendental knowledge, he could have returned home and conducted the business of a government as a brahmachari. Instead, however, when he returned to household life, he accepted a wife also. The principle is that when one becomes a grahast, he must live perfectly in that order, which means he must live peacefully with a wife and children. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first wife died, his mother requested him to marry for a second time. He was 20 years old and was going to take sannyas at the age of 24. Yet, by the request of his mother, he married. As long as I'm in household life, he told his mother, I must have a wife, for household life does not mean staying in a house. Real household life means living in a house with a wife. So these are the codes of married life. So Priyavrat, he could have just gone home, not gotten married, and could have just done the what do you say? Well, he was the ruler, he was the emperor of the world. So he could have just ruled, but he said, no, now I need to get married also because that's what the codes of conduct. He's no more a brahmachari, he's no more doing austerities. 3 words in this verse are very significant. Uhavava. These words are used to express wonder. Priyavrat Maharaj had taken a vow of renunciation, but accepting a wife and begetting children have nothing to do with the path of renunciation. These are activities on the path of enjoyment. It was a source of great wonder, therefore, that Maharaj Priyavrat, who had followed the path of renunciation, had now accepted the path of enjoyment. Sometimes we are criticized because although I'm a sannyasi, I've taken part in the marriage ceremonies of my disciples. So here Prabhupada is speaking about himself because Prabhupada, he was a sannyasi and yet he would personally do the marriage yagya for his disciples. It must be explained, however, that since we have started a Krishna conscious society and since a human society must also have ideal marriages, to correctly establish an ideal society, we must take part in marrying some of its members, although we have taken to the path of renunciation. This may be astonishing to persons who are not very interested in establishing Deva Varna Sharma, the transcendental system of 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, however, wanted to re-establish Deva Varnashram. In Deva Varnashram, there cannot be acknowledgement of social status according to birthright, because in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the determining considerations are guna and karma, one's qualities and work. It is this Deva Varnashram that should be established all over the world to continue a perfect society for Krishna consciousness. This may be astonishing to foolish critics, but it is one of the functions of a Krishna conscious society. So Srila Prabhupada, he conducted the marriage ceremonies. He was criticized because he's a sannyasi, how he's doing this yagya of marriage. But because there was no one else available to do this kind of yagya, and he wanted his disciples to be correctly situated in society. As he's pointing out here, Deva Varnashram, that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted Deva Varnashram. Now we cannot get that Vedic society back now. So, but Deva Varnashram means centered around Krishna. Everyone who, for example, those who are Brahmanically inclined, then they study the scriptures and they teach the scriptures. Those who are inclined to management, leadership, they can manage the temples, they can be in leadership positions in the temples. Then those who are inclined to business or finance, so they can do that to maintain the temples. And the Shudra, they can do so much other work in the temple or in the Krishna conscious community. And in this way establish Deva Varnashram centered around Krishna. So Varnashram system is not based on birthright, but based on guna and karma, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, guna karma vibhakasa, based on one's nature, one's activity. So that everyone can contribute to society, be a responsible member of society. Agni Dredha Majhiva Yagyabahu Mahavira Hiranyareto. Grihata Prashta Savana Medha Tithi Vittihotra Kavya Iti Sarva Eva Agni Namanaha.
धृतृपृष्ठ सवन्तिति वीतिहोत्र कवय इति सर्वे एव अग्निनामनः.
The 10 sons of Maharaj Priyavrat were named Agnidhara, Itmajiva, Yagyabahu, Mahavira, Hiranyareta, Grihataprashtha, Savana, Medaditi, Itihotra, and Kavi. These are also names of Agni, the fire god. So all the 10 names are of fire god. Tesham Kavir Mahavira Savana Iti Traya Asan Urdhva Retasastam.
एतेषां कविर्महावीर सवन इति आत्रय आसन विधाय
Atma Vidyayam Arbha Bhavat Arabhya Krita Parichayam.
आत्मविद्यायाम् अर्भावात् आरभ्य कृतपरिचयाः.
Paramahamsayam Evashramam Abhajan. Among these 10, namely Kavi, Mahavir, and Savana, lived in complete celibacy. Thus trained in brahmachari life from the beginning of childhood, they were very conversant with the highest perfection known as the Paramhamsa ashram. The word Urdhva-retasa in this verse is very significant. Urdhva-reta refers to one who can control sex life, and who, instead of wasting semen by discharging it, can use this most important substance accumulated in the body to enrich the brain. One who can completely control sex life is able to work wonderfully with his brain, especially in remembering. Thus, students who simply hear Vedic instructions once from their teacher could remember them verbatim without needing to read books, which therefore did not exist in former times. So, from young age, people were trained in brahmachari ashram to remain celibate, and that's how the memories could be so sharp, and that's why there were no need of any books. Now we have books, we have our phones, we have everything, yet we forget. We can see Kali Yuga, our memory is so weak. Another significant word is Arbha Bhavat, which means from very childhood. Another meaning is from being very affectionate to children. In other words, Paramhamsa life is dedicated for the benefit of others, just as a father sacrifices many things out of affection for his son. Great saintly persons sacrifice all kinds of bodily comforts for the benefit of human society. So, just like Lord Chaitanya, he's the Supreme Lord himself, and yet he took sannyas because he wanted to spread the holy name. So it was not for himself, but he took sannyas for us, so that so that others could receive the holy names. In this connection, there is a verse concerning the six Goswami. Tyaktva ashesha mandala pati shrenim sadatuchava bhutva dina ganesha karunaya kaupina kantha. Because of their compassion for the poor fallen souls, the six Goswamis gave up their exalted positions as ministers and took vows as mendicants, thus minimizing their bodily wants as far as possible. They each accepted only a loincloth and a begging bowl. Thus they remained in Vrindavan to execute the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by compiling and publishing various Vaishnava literatures. So Prabhupada is all giving the example of six Goswamis. They were, they're coming from very good families, very rich. Rup Sanatan Goswamis, they were like chief minister to the king, so they were really very rich. Jiva Goswami was their nephew. Raghunath Das Goswami was coming also very, very opulent, very rich family. Gopal Bhatt from Srirangam, son of the Pujari. Raghunath Das Goswami also very good. But they all gave up. They gave up their families, gave up all comforts, everything. For what? For us. Because Lord Chaitanya ordered them to write books, Bhakti Shastras, and to excavate the pastime places of Lord Krishna, to build the temples, because people had almost forgotten Krishna. So they built up Vrindavan, where the pastime places were, built the temples. So they took all kinds of discomfort for our benefit. Srila Rupa Goswami has given us Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Sanatan Goswami, Bhagavad Bhagavatam, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, so many books. Jiva Goswami is the most scholar amongst all of them. And seems he compiled 400,000 verses. So great scholars. Did anyone want to add anything or comment? Okay. Asmin huva upashamashila parmarshaya sakala jiva.
तस्मिन् हुवा उपशमशिला
उपशीलः परम ऋषि सत्सञ्जीवः
निकायावासस्य भगवतो वासुदेवस्य भीतानं शरणभूतस्य
निकाय आवसस्य भगवतो वासुदेवस्य भीतनां शरणभूतस्य
श्रीमच्चरणं बिन्दाविरत samarana vikalita parama bhakti.
Macharnarvinda
श्रीमच्चरणारविन्द
Smaran Avigalit Param Bhakti Yoga.
Yoganubhavena paribhavitantar hridayadikate bhagavate.
Anubhaven
योगानुभावेन
Paribhavin Antaridaya Adhikate Bhagavati Sarvesha Bhutanam.
Sarvesham bhutanam atmabhute pratyag atmani evatmanas.
Sarvesham Bhutanam Atmabhute Pratyak Atmani Ev Atmanamah.
Tadatmyam avisheshya samiyo.
Tadatmyam Avisheshana Samiyu.
Thus situated in the renounced order from the beginning of their lives, all three of them completely controlled the activities of their senses and thus became great saints. They concentrated their minds always upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the resting place of the totality of living entities, and who is therefore celebrated as Vasudev. Lord Vasudev is the only shelter of those who are actually afraid of material existence. By constantly thinking of the lotus feet, of his lotus feet, these three sons of Maharaj Priyavrat became advanced in pure devotional service. By the prowess of their devotional service, they could directly perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and realize that there was qualitatively no difference between themselves and him. The Paramhamsa stage is the topmost position in renounced life. In sannyas, the renounced order, there are 4 stages. So, in sannyas also there are levels, 4 stages. Kutichaka, Bahudaka, Parivrajaka, and Paramhams. According to the Vedic system, when one accepts the renounced order, he stays outside his village in a cottage, and his necessities, especially his food, are supplied from home. This is called the Kutichaka stage. So, sannyasi, the person has just become a sannyasi, he stays outside, not inside the village, outside, and his food is brought by his family. When a sannyasi further advances, he no longer accepts anything from home. Instead, he collects his necessities, especially his food, from many places. This system is called Madhukari, which literally means the profession of the bumblebees. So it means the sannyasi, now he's advanced, so he does not accept food coming from his house. Instead, he goes begging door to door. That's called Madhukari, the profession of the bumblebees. As bumblebees collect honey from many flowers, a little from each, so a sannyasi should beg from door to door, but not accept very much food from any particular house. He should collect a little bit from every house. This is called the Bahudaka stage. So he goes little, he takes. Now, the reason the sannyasi goes to someone's house is not actually for his benefit, but he's going to wake up the grihasthas to spiritual life. That's the reason the sannyasis would go house to house, to wake up everyone, take up hearing and chanting the names of God. When a sannyasi is still more experienced, he travels all over the world to preach the glories of Lord Vasudev. He is then known as Parivrajaka. So, like Srila Prabhupada, he went around the world 14 times. So, that's why when we say the Prema Dhvani, we say Parivrajaka. The sannyasi reaches the Paramhamsa stage when he finishes his preaching work and he sits down in one place, strictly for the sake of advancing in spiritual life. So, Paramhamsa is the highest stage of sannyas. Also, Srila Prabhupada is a Paramhamsa. An actual Paramhamsa is one who completely controls his senses and engages in the unalloyed service of the Lord. So the pure devotee. And not necessarily he sits down in one place, but he uses everything in Krishna's service. Therefore, all three of these sons of Priyavrat, namely Kavi, Mahavir, and Savana, were situated in the Paramhamsa stage from the very beginning. Their senses could not disturb them, for their senses were completely engaged in serving the Lord. So, pure devotees, they're engaging everything in the service of the Supreme Lord, and that's why they are called Paramhams. Therefore, the three brothers are described in this verse as Upashama Shila. Upashama means completely subdued. Because they completely subdued their senses, they are understood to have been great sages and saints. So, although they are sons of the king, but they are saints, they are pure devotees. After subduing their senses, the three brothers concentrated their minds upon the lotus feet of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, the lotus feet of Vasudeva are everything. So God has feet. God is a person. That's how he has feet. That's why we have said, take shelter of the lotus feet of God. Take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Lord Vasudeva is the reservoir of all living entities. When this cosmic manifestation is dissolved, all living entities enter the supreme body of the Lord, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who merges within the body of Mahavishnu. Both of these Vishnu Tattvas are Vasudev Tattvas, and therefore the great sages Kavi, Mahavir, and Savana concentrated always upon the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva Krishna. So, Lord Krishna, he is our supreme shelter. He is the shelter of every living entity, not only here in the material world, but also in the spiritual world. It is he who is maintaining each and every one in the material world as well as in the spiritual world, and as well as when the material manifestation, when the world is not manifested, when the material energy is sleeping, so we living entities are also sleeping. We are entering into the body of Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, then Mahavishnu. So because we are entering the body of Mahavishnu doesn't mean we become Mahavishnu. No, we remain there as individual souls. When the green bird is entering the green tree, the bird also exists, the tree also exists. Different entities. When we are entering into the body of Mahavishnu, we exist as individual souls. We do not become Mahavishnu. So, in this way, they could understand that the super soul within the heart is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they could recognize their identity with Him. The complete description of this realization is that simply by discharging the unalloyed form of devotional service, one can realize his self completely. So we want self-realization, we want to understand who we are, understand our spiritual nature. We need to engage in devotional service. And when we engage in devotional service, we will be able to understand ourselves and we will be able to understand God, our relationship with God. The Parama Bhakti Yoga mentioned in this verse means that a living entity, by dint of unalloyed devotional service, has no other interest than the service of the Lord. As described in Bhagavad Gita, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. So the pure devotee, he's understood his duty towards God. He's understood that he has a loving relationship with God. He has a duty towards God. So that's what he does then. He just engages, he does whatever activity he does is for the pleasure of God. He's already understood the knowledge, he's realized the knowledge. By Parama Bhakti Yoga, by elevating oneself to the highest platform of loving service, one can automatically be relieved from the bodily concept of life and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. So, gradually, we engage in devotional service, and then we can come to the point of pure devotional service. And, realizing the knowledge that we are not the body, we are spirit, soul. And at that point, we will be able to see God face to face. Because then at that point, the senses are spiritualized. The soul has spiritual senses, spiritual eyes, by which can see God. God is spiritual. So this cleansing process happens by engaging in devotional service, which begins by hearing from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. As confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, Santaha Sadeva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti, Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam, Govindam Adi Purusham Tam Aham Bhajami. An advanced devotee who is known as a Sat or saint can always see within his heart the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Krishna, Shyam Sundar, expands himself by his plenary portion, and thus a devotee can always see him within his heart. So the devotee, his consciousness is clean, so that's how he can see the Paramatma in his heart. Because our consciousness is still covered with all these material desires, like how when the window is dirty, we cannot see outside. Similarly, because the consciousness is not clean, we cannot see the Paramatma who is sitting right next to us. But once the consciousness is purified by engaging in devotional service, then one will be able to see Paramatma. Paramatma is an expansion of Krishna. Krishna is God, and Krishna expands as Paramatma to be with us, each and every one of us. So a pure devotee can see him with his spiritual eyes. Anyasyam api jayayam trayaputra asan uttamastamasam.
Yashyam api jayayam
Ayasya
trayasya
Putra Namastamasho
Revata iti manvantaradi patayaha.
Revata iti manvantara dipataya.
In his other wife, Maharaj Priyavrat begot 3 sons named Uttam, Tamasa, and Revata. All of them later took charge of Manvantara millenniums. In every day of Brahma, there are 14 Manvantaras. The duration of one Manvantara. So what's one Manvantara? Manvantara is lifespan of one Manu. And that is 71 yugas, and each yug is 4,300,000 years. Almost all the Manus selected to rule the Manvantaras came from the family of Maharaj Priyavrat. 3 of them are particularly mentioned here, namely Uttama, Tamasa, and Revata. So the Manus are also coming from his family. Evam upashamanayeshu स्वतनेश अथ जगति पति जगतिम.
Evam upashamayaneshu swatanya yeshva yeshi atha jagati ti jagatim.
बुधानि एकादश परिवत्सरणाम् अव्याहताखिल पुरुषकारम्.
Arbudani ekadasha parivassaranam Avyahata Purushakara.
Sara Sambrita Dordanda Yugala Pidita Morvi Gunastanita.
Sara Sambrita Dor Danda Yugala Pidita Morvi Guna Stanita.
Viramita Dharma Pratipaksho Barishmatya Dinam Edamana.
Virta Dharma Pratipaksho Parismatas Chanu Edamana.
Pramoda Prasarana Yoshinya Rida Pramushita Hasa Avaloka Ruchira.
Pramoda Prasara Yoshin Vrida Pramushita Asavaloka Ruchira.
Sheveli Adivi Parabhuyamana Viveka Ivana Vabhudyamana Iva Mahamana Babuje.
Veli Adivi Parabhuyamana Viveka Ivana Buddhya Mana Iva Mahamana Bhuje.
After Kavi, Mahavir, and Savana were completely trained in the Paramhamsa stage of life, Maharaj Priyavrat ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. Whenever he was determined to fix his arrow upon his bowstring with his two powerful arms, all opponents of the regulative principles of religious life would flee from his presence in fear of the unparalleled prowess he displayed in ruling the universe. He greatly loved his wife Barishmati, and with the increase of days, the exchange of nuptial love also increased. By her feminine behavior, as she dressed herself, walked, got up, smiled, laughed, and glanced about, Queen Barishmati increased his energy. Thus, although he was a great soul, he appeared lost in the feminine conduct of his wife. He behaved with her just like an ordinary man, but actually he was a great soul. In this verse, the word dharma pratipaksha, opponents of religious principles, refers not to a particular faith, but to varna sharma dharma, the division of society, socially and spiritually, into four varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and four ashrams: Brahmacharya, Grahas, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So the divisions of society. Here Prabhupada is saying that dharma pratipaksha, it refers to varnashrama dharma. To maintain proper social order and help the citizens gradually progress toward the goal of life, namely spiritual understanding, the principles of varnashrama dharma must be accepted. So varnashrama dharma is like a stepping stone. It's like to step into bhakti. From this verse, Maharaj Priyavrat appears to have been so strict in maintaining this institution of varnashrama dharma that anyone neglecting it would immediately flee from his presence as soon as the king warned him by fighting or administering like punishment. Indeed, Maharaj Priyavrat would not have to fight, for simply because of his strong determination, they dared not disobey the rules and regulations of varnashrama dharma. It is said that unless human society is regulated by varnashrama dharma, it is no better than a bestial society of cats and dogs. Maharaj Priyavrat therefore strictly maintained varnashrama dharma by his extraordinary, unparalleled prowess. So now that he is taken up family life, he's playing the role of family life also very well. Just like an actor. If the actor has to be a good actor, he really gets into the role, If it's a villain role, he'll act like a villain. If it's like a hero's role, then he'll go all out, like really doing it. So here Maharaj Priyavrat, he's a pure devotee. But he's taken up the kingdom, he's taken up a wife, so he's really playing the role. To maintain such a life of strict vigilance, one needs encouragement from his wife. In the Varna Sharma Dharma system, certain classes, such as the Brahmanas and Sannyasis, do not need encouragement from the opposite sex. Kshatriyas and Grihasthas, however, actually need the encouragement of their wives in order to execute their duties. Indeed, a Grihasth or Kshatriya cannot properly execute his responsibilities without the association of his wife. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally admitted that a Grihasth must live with a wife. Kshatriyas were even allowed to have many wives to encourage them in discharging the duties of government. The association of a good wife is necessary in a life of karma and political affairs. So, whatever is the social responsibility, to do that responsibility. And Prabhupada is pointing out that Kshatriyas would need encouragement, so they would even marry many, 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 many wives, not only one. Grihas needs the encouragement of a wife. So a Grihas needs to have a wife just to maintain the society in proper order, no? To have a proper functioning of society. So that the king could do his duty well, he needed encouragement from his wife or wives. Maharaj Priyavrat took advantage of his good wife, Barishmati, who was always very expert in pleasing her great husband by properly dressing herself, smiling, and exhibiting her feminine bodily features. Queen Barishmati always kept Maharaj Priyavrat very encouraged, and thus he executed his governmental duty very properly. In this verse, Eva has twice been used to indicate that Maharaj Priyavrat acted exactly like a henpecked husband and thereby seemed to have lost his sense of human responsibility. Actually, however, he was fully conscious of his position as a spirit soul, although he seemingly behaved like an acquiescent karmi husband. So people looking at him will think, oh, he's just being a henpecked husband or ordinary householder man. But no, he is a pure devotee. He knows his position. He's just doing his duty. Maharaj Priyavrat thus ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. One arbuda consists of 1 million years, no, 100 million years. And Maharaj Priyavrat ruled the universe for 11 such arbudas. So one arbuda, 100 million. 100 million, and he's ruling it for, so that becomes what? 1.1 billion, right? Will become 11, will become 1,100. So that will become 1.1 billion years he ruled this universe. It's like fantastic amount of time.
Their
We
lives were
barely
so,
live for 100
so
years.
long.
Huh?
Their lives were so long.
Yeah,
They
that's
lived for
this is
so
his,
long.
and he has already lived before. Huh? He was doing austerities for
Yes.
such a long time, and then he's being the emperor for like 1.1 billion years. So, wow,
So this is in which yug? Any idea? Satyug?
this looks like Satyug, no? Because they're having
Satyug, yeah.
such long lives, and they are doing all this uh, austerities for thousands of years. So seems like Satyug. Hmm. यावत् अभासयति सुरगिरिम् अनुपरिक्रामन् भगवान् आदित्यो
Yavat avabhasayati suragirim anuparikramam Raman Bhagavan Adityo.
वसुधातलम् अर्धने वा प्रतपति अर्धने ardhena vachadayati tada.
Vasudatalam ardeneva pratapati ardena vachadayati tada.
He Bhagavad Upasanopachaitati Purusha Prabhavastad Anabhinandam.
He Bhagavad Upasanopachaitati Purusha Prabhavastad Anibhinandan.
Amajavena Rathena Jyotirmayena Rachanim Api Dinam Karishyamiti.
Samajavena Rathena Jyotirmayena Rajanim Apidanam Karishyamiti.
Saptakrit Vastaranim Anuparyakramat Vidya Eva Patanga.
Saptakrit Vasattara Nimnupara Yakamat Vidya Eva Patanga.
So excellently ruling the universe, King Priyavrat once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumeru hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light, and when the sun is in the south, the north receives less. King Priyavrat disliked this situation and therefore decided to make daylight in the part of the universe where there was night. He followed the orbit of the sun god on a brilliant chariot and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is a Bengali saying which describes that someone is so powerful that he can make the day night and the night day and the day night. That saying is current because of the prowess of Priyavrat. His activities demonstrate how powerful he became by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, by his worship, he's gotten this power that he can make daylight in a part where it's supposed to be night. The Lord Krishna is known as Yogeshwar, the master of all mystic powers. In Bhagavad Gita 18.78, it is said, wherever there is the master of all mystics, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, victory, fortune, and all other opulences are present. We just read this verse today morning. So, where Sanjaya said that wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, there is surely victory, fortune, and all opulences are present. So Krishna is Yogeshwar, master of all the mystics, all mystic powers. You know, there are some people who have mystic powers, but Krishna is the master of all of them. Devotional service is so powerful. When a devotee achieves what he wants to accomplish, it is not by his own mystic power, but by the grace of the Master of Mystic Power, Lord Krishna. By his grace, a devotee can accomplish wonderful things, unimaginable, even to the most powerful scientists. So it's unimaginable how to make, like, for example, it's night here, the moon is up. Then how can the sun come here? You know, the moon is up, it's night. How? But here, Maharaj Priyavrat is doing it by the mercy of Krishna. By the dint of his devotional service, Krishna is allowing him to do such things. Because it's Krishna's law, no? That when it's night, there is no sun. And that's the reason it's night. His law is made by Krishna. But because the pure devotee is so dear to Krishna, Krishna is allowing him to do such a thing. From the description in this verse, it appears that the sun moves. According to modern astronomers, the sun is fixed in one place, surrounded by the solar system. But here we find that the sun is not stationary. It is rotating in a prescribed orbit. This fact is corroborated by Brahma Samhita 552. Yasyagnaya Brahmati Samvrita Kala Chakra. The sun is rotating in its fixed orbit in accordance with the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So modern science says that sun is fixed, but the scriptures, the Vedic scriptures say that the sun is moving in an orbit. Here Prabhupada is quoting Brahma Samhita. According to Jyotirveda, the science of astronomy in the Vedic literature, the sun moves for 6 months on the northern side of the Sumeru hill and for 6 months on the southern side. We have practical experience on this planet that when there is summer in the north, there is winter in the south, and vice versa. Yeah, like in the northern hemisphere, it's winter. That time in the southern hemisphere, it is summer. And then when it is summer in the northern hemisphere, it's winter in the southern hemisphere. So modern materialistic scientists sometimes present themselves as knowing all the ingredients of the sun, yet they are unable to offer a second sun like Maharaj Priyavrata's. So for sure, we do not have the capacity to create another sun. Although Maharaj Priyavrata devised a very powerful chariot as brilliant as the sun, he had no desire to compete with the sun god. But a Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. His purpose was to give abundant benefits in material existence. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that in the months of April and May, the rays of Maharaj Priyavrata's brilliant sun were as pleasing as the rays of the moon. And in October and November, both morning and evening, that sun provided more warmth than the sunshine. In short, Maharaj Priyavrata was extremely powerful, and his actions extended his power in all directions. So he's like creating a second sun by his chariot. That is his chariot, that he's following the orbit of the sun and he's like making another sun. So this is achieved by the mercy of Krishna. Anyone wanted to add anything or comment anything?
Yeah, it is all by the mercy of Krishna, right? Because of his devotional service, strong devotional service, he could do all this, right?
Yes, that's right.
So even though with your endeavor, but you need Krishna's mercy for doing things, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, we need Krishna's mercy for fulfillment of our plans. That's why we say man proposes, God disposes. So, we put a proposal in front of God, but it's by God's mercy that it is fulfilled. Krishna's mercy. Yes, thank you so much. So we'll stop here for today. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare